In February, the last of the 724 new staples were installed.
So we finally got all the parts back in the boiler. All the caps are on. Come here and look in the firebox. The bolts are in, the sheets are in, the rivets are in. So now what we're doing is we're doing the final touches to get ready to put water in the boiler. So what we do, once we get everything together and everything tight, we go in and we put water in the boiler. This is how we test the boilers to see if they're capable of steaming, you know, and then it's a lot easier to have a screw up with water, because if something's leaking or cracked or whatever, we see water pouring out, not steam. So once we get a hydro and we get it up to the pressure that we want to, then we're going to try steaming it. We're actually going to try to get a fire in it and see how it produces steam and see how everything operates under the steaming conditions.
In March, water was put into the boiler and pumped up to operating pressure. Work right now includes beating all tubes and flues, buttoning up repairs to the feed water heater and pump, machining new tricocks, water glass, valves and plugs, and plumbing in various items.
This is where the water glass stuff is coming in. You can see we're starting to get some of the stuff back on. This is to tell the level of the water in the boiler. We're starting to get, again, the caps are back on, and all the new sleeves and caps that we put on are all tidied up. And now the fittings are going on at the back head. This is the feed water heater's hot water pump. So once the cold pump sends water up into here, it goes up into the top, into a chamber, and then the preheated water gets pumped into the boiler. Again, trying to make the machine a little more efficient. We're working at this too. And this actually, surprisingly, was a wonderful surprise that it wasn't in bad shape. We actually took it apart. Most of the parts were in good shape. Put it back together, lubricated up everything, put it back together. So we're pretty happy about that. We cleaned up the rods. We got to clean up all of the lubrication stuff. So every one of these lines has to get blown out or replaced. All the check valves and everything has to get redone and cleaned up and taken apart. You can see we did this one. My good friend Chuck took this apart, rebuilt the whole thing, and made sure everything was working like it's supposed to. So as you can understand, if you just start counting up, we have actually 2 lubricators here in the front. Just the number of lines that go to different, you know, to the wheels, to the bearings and all that. It's just, it gets to be a little overwhelming. But we're getting there, we're getting close, and parts are gonna start going back on finally.
All the new Stoker equipment is rebuilt and on hand, along with a new steam dome lid.
So in the firebox, you have siphons and you have arch tubes, and over this you have fire brick. So the fire actually lays beneath these things, and you want the fire to curl up around towards the back of the locomotive and then out through the combustion chamber and the tube sheets. So we have some old fire brick. We have to come up with a way to get the new ones made. You don't really go for Walmart for this stuff anymore, sadly. And we actually talked to a bunch of different people to see if we can get forms made up and actually have the fire brick. You have to cook this stuff. Here's a new one. You can see what they're supposed to look like is this. So they lay on top of the arch tubes and the combustion, or the siphons in here, and then your fire's underneath that. And then it's very important because you're trying to get as much heat out of the fire as possible, so you don't want it just to chase right out of the locomotive, like to roll it around. Trying to get as much heat as we possibly can. Here's the old ones. We're actually trying to take measurements off of them, which is pretty hard because they're broken and terrible shape. And then what we're going to do is get these made.
We're looking forward to the official hydro test by the FRA coming up this June. For more information and continuous updates, you can like us on Facebook at Reading and Northern Railroad -Passenger, or find us on the web at rbmnrr-passenger.com.